Make my son walk and you can call me husband again, and your ex-wife did just that. Emily Johnson took a deep breath while firmly holding little Timmy's hand in the courthouse. Her lawyer nervously organized papers as her ex-husband arrived, accompanied by his private attorney, wearing an impeccable suit that cost more than 3 months of her salary. It was then that Daniel Roberts stood up in the middle of the hearing, interrupting the judge who had just begun reading the child support proceedings. "Your Honor, I'd like to make a proposal to my ex-wife," he said, fixing his eyes on Emily. The judge raised his eyebrows, clearly displeased with the interruption. "Mr. Roberts, this isn't the time for—" "Please, Your Honor, it's about my son, about our son," Daniel insisted, pointing to Timmy. Emily felt her stomach tighten. Whenever Daniel talked about Timothy that way, something bad was coming. "Emily," he said, turning to her, "if you can make our son walk again within 6 months, I'll come back to you. I'll cancel the divorce, restore our family, and you'll never have to fight for child support again." Silence filled the room. Emily felt as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. Timothy, who had been quietly sitting on her lap, lifted his little head with wide eyes. "Daddy's coming home?" asked the boy in a thin voice. Daniel didn't answer, keeping his gaze fixed on Emily. "And if I can't?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "You give up any child support. Forever." Emily's mother, Mrs. Margaret, who was sitting behind her, whispered through her teeth, "That man has completely lost his mind." Daniel's lawyer handed a document to the judge. "My client has prepared the terms in writing, Your Honor. Everything is legal and within the law." Emily looked at her son. Timothy had been born perfect, running and playing like any child until he was 3. It was after the messy separation that he began showing strange symptoms. First came the constant falls, then the weakness in his legs. Doctors diagnosed a rare muscular condition that, according to them, had no cure. "Are you sure about what you're doing, Daniel?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I am. You always said you'd do anything for Timothy. Now's the time to prove it." Timothy tugged on his mother's blouse. "Mommy, I want to walk again. I want to run like the other boys." Emily closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her decision was made. "I accept." The judge banged his gavel, formalizing the most unusual agreement of his career. Daniel left the room without looking back, while Emily hugged Timothy, whispering promises she didn't know if she could keep. Mrs. Margaret approached her daughter when the room emptied. "My child, have you lost your mind? That man is playing games with you both. Mother, if there's a chance, however small, I have to try. But you don't have money for expensive treatments. You know he made sure to cancel the boy's health insurance when you divorced." It was true. Daniel had cancelled Timothy's medical coverage the day after signing the divorce papers, claiming the basic child support would cover essential medical needs. Of course, he knew it wouldn't cover them. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She stayed up browsing the internet until dawn, researching Timothy's condition, alternative treatments, anything that could provide hope. Most articles were discouraging, but some mentioned cases of significant improvement with intensive physical therapy and multidisciplinary treatment. On Monday, she called every physical therapist in town. Private sessions cost between $200 and $500 per session, and Timothy would need at least 3 sessions per week. With her public school teacher's salary, it would be impossible. "Mom, does the neighborhood health clinic have a physical therapist?" she asked Mrs. Margaret over the phone. "Yes, dear. Susan from the bakery took her grandson there when he broke his leg, but it takes forever to get an appointment." "I'll try." At the health clinic, Emily Johnson faced a 2-hour wait to be seen. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with glasses hanging from her neck, didn't show much optimism. "Ma'am, the waiting list for neurological physical therapy is 8 months, and that's if you're lucky. But it's urgent. My son—" "Everyone says it's urgent, dear. I'll put your name down here, but I can't promise anything." Emily left the clinic carrying Timothy in her arms, feeling the weight of defeat before the fight had even begun. That's when she ran into Mr. Walter, the custodian at the school where she worked, at the corner bakery. "Teacher Emily, how's little Timmy?" he asked, waving to the boy. "Hi, Mr. Walter, we're struggling. I heard about the situation with your ex-husband. What a shameful man. Do you know of any affordable physical therapists? I'm desperate. Walter scratched his grey beard, thoughtful. Well, at Grace Church there's a lady who does volunteer work with special needs children. She's not certified, but they say she has a blessed touch. Mrs. Eleanor, do you know her? No, but I'll look for her. She's there Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoon. It's worth a try, teacher. The following Tuesday, Emily arrived at Grace Church with Timothy in her arms. The place smelled of candle wax and had a comforting silence. In the back hall, she found a white-haired lady, about 70 years old, surrounded by 4 children with different limitations. Are you Mrs. Eleanor? Asked Emily hesitantly. That's me, dear. And this little prince must be Timothy, replied the elderly woman with a warm smile. How do you know his name? Walter told me about your situation. Come, sit here with me. Mrs. Eleanor examined Timothy with a delicacy Emily hadn't seen since her son's condition manifested. Most doctors treated him like a clinical case, not like a child. Timothy, do you remember what it was like to run? Asked the elderly woman. I remember, he replied softly. I used to run really fast, faster than the wind. Then your legs know how to do it. They just forgot a little bit. Shall we help them remember? Over the next 30 minutes, Mrs. Eleanor showed Emily a series of simple exercises, explaining each movement with a patience she had never encountered in medical offices. I learned these techniques caring for my grandson who was born with cerebral palsy. Today he's 30 years old and works at a store, she explained. I don't promise miracles, but I promise we'll try with love. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Emily left the church with a feeling she hadn't had in months, hope. That night she did the exercises with Timothy before bed. He complained a little but was visibly more excited. Mommy, the lady at church is nice. She smells like Grandma. That's true, son. She's going to help us. And will Daddy come back when I can walk? Emily swallowed hard. How to explain to a 5-year-old that his father was using his condition as a cruel bet? Let's just focus on you getting better, okay? The next day, Daniel Roberts appeared at the school during recess. Emily saw him through the teacher's lounge window talking to the principal. Her heart raced. Teacher Emily, could you come here, please? Called Mrs. Barbara, the principal. In the principal's office, Daniel was sitting with a rigid posture, arms crossed. Emily, your ex-husband came by to say he's withdrawing authorization for little Timmy to participate in any physical activity at school. What do you mean? She asked, confused. It's simple, Daniel replied coldly. If you're going to be responsible for making him walk, then you take full responsibility. The school won't put my son at risk anymore. Daniel, it's just basic physical education classes. I don't want to argue, I've already made it official. Any movement Timothy makes at school, any fall, anything, will be your fault. Emily felt anger rising in her throat. You've been trying to sabotage me from day one. I'm giving you the opportunity you always wanted. Now it's at your own risk. After he left, Mrs. Barbara called Emily for a private conversation. Emily, I've known you for 10 years. You're one of the best teachers we've ever had here. But that man is playing a cruel game. I know, Mrs. Barbara, but it's for Timothy's chance. And if it doesn't work, then at least I'll know I tried everything. The principal was silent for a moment, looking out the window at the playground where other children ran and played. You know, our physical education pool has been closed for 2 years. They say water is good for muscle therapy. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything officially, but if a dedicated mother wanted to use the school facilities on weekends for exercises with her son, well, I'd be the last person to know, wouldn't I? Emily felt tears of gratitude in her eyes. Mrs. Barbara, No need to say anything. Just be careful. That Saturday, Emily arrived at school at 7 in the morning with Timothy and a bag of towels. Walter was waiting at the gate. The pool is clean and heated, teacher. I made sure to check everything yesterday. Won't you get in trouble for this? Trouble? What trouble? I just came here to fix some things on the weekend, he winked. The pool was perfect. Timothy was delighted to see the crystal blue water. Emily put him on the edge, holding him firmly by the waist. Ready, my love, let's just move our little legs in the water, okay? The first movements were difficult. Timothy was tense, afraid of sinking, but little by little he relaxed. Emily held him under his arms, letting him try to move his legs freely in the water. "It's tingling, Mom," he said, after 20 minutes. "Tingling how?" "Like when we sit too long and our leg falls asleep. But it feels good." Emily felt her heart race. Could this be a good sign? After the first session in the pool, Timothy slept deeply for the first time in weeks. On Sunday, he asked to go back. "Tomorrow, son. Now let's do Mrs. Eleanor's exercises." They were in the middle of the exercise session when someone knocked on the door. Emily opened it and found Ashley, Daniel's current girlfriend. "Hi, Emily. Can I come in?" Ashley was young, pretty, everything Emily remembered being 15 years ago. She worked as a secretary at Daniel's company and had gotten pregnant 2 months after the divorce. "What do you want?" asked Emily, not hiding her coldness. "To talk about Daniel." Timothy waved to Ashley from the couch where he was doing leg-strengthening exercises. "Hi, Aunt Ashley." "Hi, sweetie," she replied, but Emily noticed sadness in her voice. "Timothy, go play in your room for a bit," Emily requested. "But Mom, I haven't finished the exercises." "You can continue later." When they were alone, Ashley sighed deeply. "Emily, I came to warn you. Daniel isn't playing fair." "What do you mean?" "He hired a private detective to follow you. He wants to document all the places you take, Timothy, all the people you visit. He's putting together a dossier to prove you're exposing the child to risks." Emily felt the floor vanish beneath her feet. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because..." Ashley hesitated. "Because I'm pregnant and I found out I might have the same problem. Timothy's condition could be hereditary." "What?" "I had some genetic tests done, and they came back abnormal. There's a 40% chance my baby could be born with the same muscular condition." Emily sat down in the kitchen chair, trying to process the information. "And does Daniel know?" "No. And I don't know how to tell him. He always made it clear that Timothy's problem was your fault." "My fault?" Emily felt indignation rise within her. "He always blamed me for something no doctor can explain." "I know. That's why I'm here. If you can help Timothy, maybe you can help me too when my baby is born." The two women looked at each other in silence. Two mothers, each facing their own fears about their children's future. "Ashley, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you stay with a man who abandoned his sick son?" Ashley lowered her eyes. "Because I thought he was just suffering in a different way, but now I see that maybe I was wrong." Timothy came running back into the living room, or rather, dragging himself along the furniture. "Mommy, can I do my exercises now?" "Yes, my love." Ashley watched Timothy struggle to do the simple movements Mrs. Eleanor had taught him. Tears streamed down her face. "He's so brave," she murmured. "He always has been. Even on the hardest days, he never complains." Ashley got up to leave, but at the door she turned around one last time. "Emily, if you need anything, I can help," without Daniel knowing. In the following days, Emily intensified the exercise routine with Timothy. Every Tuesday and Thursday, they went to Grace Church to see Mrs. Eleanor, and on weekends they used the school pool. The boy showed small signs of progress, managing to keep his legs stiffer and even attempting some voluntary movements in the water. It was on a Thursday that everything changed. Emily was in the teacher's lounge when she received a call from Daniel's lawyer. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm calling to inform you that my client is prohibiting the use of the school pool. We learned that you are exposing the child to activities not supervised by professionals." "How did you find out about the pool?" "That's not important. As of today, any aquatic activity is prohibited." Emily hung up the phone with trembling hands. How had Daniel found out? She was sure no one had seen them. Walter appeared at the door of the teacher's lounge. "Teacher, can I speak with you?" "Of course, Mr. Walter. It's about the pool. I think I figured out how your ex-husband found out." "How?" "Jessica, that new physical education teacher. I saw her taking pictures of you last Saturday." Emily felt her stomach turn. Jessica was young, newly hired, and always made unpleasant comments about teachers who use their children to get attention. "I'm sure it was her," Walter continued. "She's dating a cousin of your ex's lawyer." "My God. But don't worry, teacher, I have an idea." Walter explained that he knew the owner of a small gym in the next neighborhood. The man had a son with cerebral palsy and was always moved by similar cases. I can talk to him. Maybe he'll let you use the pool there at a time that doesn't interfere with the clients. That would be amazing, Mr. Walter. His name is John Carter. I'll speak with him today. On Friday, John Carter called Emily personally. Teacher, Walter told me about your situation. I can let you use the pool every morning early, before we open to the public, from 6 to 7:30. Mr. John, I can't afford to pay. Who said anything about paying? My son is a computer science graduate now, but when he was little, nobody gave him a chance. If it weren't for the persistence of a warrior mother like you, Emily couldn't hold back her tears. Thank you so much. Just one condition. I'll be attending the sessions. I have experience with this type of aquatic therapy. On the first day at the facility, John Carter showed surprising knowledge of little Timmy's limitations. He had studied extensively to help his own son and applied techniques even Mrs. Eleanor wasn't familiar with. Let's work on sensitivity first, he explained, moving little Timmy's legs in the water with precise movements. That tickles, laughed little Timmy. Excellent sign. It means the brain is still receiving signals from the legs. After 2 weeks of daily sessions, little Timmy managed to voluntarily wiggle his big toe. It was a small moment, almost imperceptible, but Emily saw it. John, look, he moved it. I saw. Little Timmy, do it again for Uncle John. The boy concentrated intensely and managed to move his toe again. I did it, shouted little Timmy, beaming. Emily hugged her son in the pool, crying with emotion. John Carter smiled, wiping his own eyes. Now it's time to intensify, he said. During the 3rd week, little Timmy began to stand in the pool with support. His legs trembled a lot, but they supported part of his body weight. That's when Daniel appeared at the facility. What are you doing here? Asked Emily, startled. I came to see my son's progress, he replied dryly. I have that right. John Carter got out of the pool and approached Daniel. You must be little Timmy's father. Pleasure, John Carter. Pleasure. I heard my son is making progress. Yes, he is. Would you like to see? John Carter called little Timmy, who was playing with some floating toys. Little Timmy, show your father how you can stand. The boy swam to the edge and, with John Carter's help, stood up. His legs shook, but he held the position for almost 10 seconds. Daniel was silent, watching. Emily couldn't read the expression on his face. Interesting, was all he said before leaving. That night, Ashley called Emily. He came home different, she said. He keeps looking at my belly in a strange way. Strange how? Afraid. I think he's starting to understand that maybe the problem isn't his fault. And you, how are you? I had more tests. The possibility has dropped to 20%, but it still exists. Ashley, can I tell you something? If your baby is born with any difficulties, I will help you. I know what it's like to go through this alone. Even after everything that happened. Even so, no child deserves to pay for the mistakes of adults. The following weeks were of steady progress. Little Timmy began to take small steps with full support, then with partial support. John Carter introduced exercises out of the water, and Mrs. Eleanor adapted her techniques to complement the aquatic work. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. In the 2nd month of the challenge, something unexpected happened. Little Timmy was doing exercises at the facility when a child with cerebral palsy arrived for his session. The boy, about 8 years old, used a wheelchair. Hi, said little Timmy. I can't walk well either. Hi, replied the other boy. I'm Andrew. I'm little Timmy. Do you want to play? Emily watched the 2 boys talking naturally about their limitations, without drama or embarrassment. It was then she realized little Timmy was dealing with his condition in a much healthier way than she had imagined. Andrew, can you move your legs? Asked little Timmy. Not much, but I have super strong arms. Want to see? Andrew did a few push-ups from his chair, impressing little Timmy. Wow, when I learn to walk again, Will you teach me how to be strong like that? Of course, John Carter approached Emily Johnson. You know, it's amazing how children handle these situations better than adults. That's true. Little Timmy never showed any bitterness. And you? How are you handling it? Emily paused to think. Over the past 2 months, she had focused so much on her son's recovery that she hadn't stopped to analyze her own feelings. I think I'm learning that it doesn't matter if Daniel comes back or not. What matters is that little Timmy is happy. That's the right answer. That afternoon, little Timmy managed to stand out of the water for 15 seconds without support. They were the longest and most emotional 15 seconds of Emily's life. "Mom, I did it!" he shouted, falling back into a sitting position but beaming with happiness. "Yes, you did, my champion." Little Timmy tried again and managed to stand for 20 seconds. On the third attempt, he took a small step before falling. John Carter clapped. "Now officially, little Timmy is walking." When they got home, Mrs. Margaret was waiting at the door with a smile Emily hadn't seen in years. "So, Mum, he managed to stand up by himself." Grandma, I walked a little bit," little Timmy told her excitedly. Mrs. Margaret picked up her grandson and kissed his face. "My brave little grandson. Grandma always knew you could do it." That night, Emily was organizing little Timmy's things when she found a drawing he had made at Washington Elementary School. It was a simple drawing, a family of 3 people holding hands, all smiling. She took the drawing to his room, where he was already asleep. "Son," she whispered, "no matter what happens, we will always be a family, even if it's just you and me." On Monday, Emily received an unexpected call. It was Dr. Henry Williams, a neurologist who worked at the city's most expensive private hospital. "Mrs. Johnson, I heard about your son's case through a colleague. I would like to examine him at no cost." "How did you hear about it?" "A video of you at the gym circulated among some professionals in the field. I was impressed with his progress." "What video?" "Someone filmed you during a session. The boy can stand by himself, correct?" Emily felt a chill in her stomach. Who had filmed it and why? "Doctor, may I ask who showed you this video?" "A colleague who works with similar cases. He was curious about the techniques you were using." "When can I bring little Timmy for an appointment?" "Tomorrow, if you want, at 2 in the afternoon." That night, Emily called John Carter to tell him about the appointment. "Professor, I think we better be careful. Whoever made that video had some interest. Do you think it was—" "I don't know. But let's agree on one thing. From now on, we will only do sessions with people we completely trust present." At the appointment with Dr. Williams, little Timmy underwent a series of detailed tests. The doctor was visibly impressed. "Mrs. Johnson, what you are doing is working. His muscle tone has improved significantly. So he can walk normally again. With the correct intensive work, yes. But he will need more specialized equipment." Dr. Williams explained that little Timmy would need special orthotics, a type of treadmill, plus sessions with an occupational therapist. How much would all that cost? About 15,000 reais for the basic equipment, plus 500 reais per week for the sessions. Emily felt her world collapse again. 15,000 reais was more than her entire yearly salary. "Doctor, is there any alternative?" "An alternative to conventional treatment?" "Well," he hesitated. "There is a community center in Hope Village that develops unconventional techniques. I can't officially recommend it, but I know they do interesting work." "What kind of techniques?" "Integrated therapy with music, arts, movement. Some results are surprising." On the way home, Emily stopped at a cafe for little Timmy to have some juice. While he played with a toy car, she looked up the community center. The place operated in an old decommissioned school and served mainly low-income families. "Mom, can I go potty?" asked Timothy. "Of course, son." Emily carried him to the restroom and, on her way out, bumped into a woman around 60 years old carrying a folder full of papers. "Sorry," said Emily. "Don't worry, dear. I was the one not paying attention," replied the woman with a northeastern accent. Some papers fell to the floor, and Emily bent down to help pick them up. On the letterhead of one of the documents, she read, "Hope Village Community Center Rebirth Project." "Do you work at the community center?" she asked, curious. "I do. I'm the coordinator of the Rebirth Project. Why do you ask?" "A doctor told me about you today. My son has a rare muscular condition." The woman, who introduced herself as Ruth, observed Timothy with a professional eye. "How old is he?" "5. "And how long has he had motor difficulties?" "For 2 years." Ruth sat in the chair next to Emily, putting the papers away. "Dear, can I be very direct with you?" "You may. Your son doesn't just have a muscular problem. He has an emotional one too. I see it in his eyes." Emily was surprised by the woman's frankness. "What do you mean?" "I've worked with hundreds of children. Some develop motor problems after intense emotional trauma. I'm not saying it's just psychological, but that the two aspects are connected. The divorce was very hard on him. I can imagine. Would you like to bring him to our center tomorrow? Just for an evaluation. How much does it cost?" "Nothing, it's all based on voluntary donations." The next day, Emily and Timothy arrived at the community center. The place was simple but welcoming, with colorful walls full of children's drawings. Ruth greeted them along with a team of 5 volunteers. "Timothy, do you like music?" asked a young therapist named Rebecca. "I do," he replied excitedly. "And drawing?" "That too." "Then today you're going to do exercises while singing and drawing at the same time. How does that sound?" During the session, Timothy was connected to simple equipment that measured muscle activity while he took part in playful activities. When he sang his favorite songs, the devices showed greater activity in his legs. "It's amazing," Ruth commented to Emily. "His nervous system responds better when he's emotionally relaxed." "What does that mean?" "It means that maybe what your son needs most is to feel safe and loved. The rest may follow." While watching Timothy playing with other children, Emily got a text on her phone. It was from Ashley. "Daniel found out about my genetic condition. We're fighting a lot. He doesn't want the baby anymore." Emily replied immediately. "Want to talk in person? I'm at a place that might help you too." An hour later, Ashley arrived at the community center with eyes red from crying. "He said he won't raise another disabled child," she told Emily. "That Timothy is enough." "And you? What do you want to do?" "I want to have my baby, with or without Daniel." Ruth, who had overheard part of the conversation, approached. "Dear, are you pregnant?" "I am, 5 months." "And are you afraid the baby might be born with limitations?" "I am." "Would you like to talk to some mothers who have been through the same situation?" Ruth took Ashley to meet the support group that met at the center. Meanwhile, Timothy continued doing exercises with Rebecca, growing more and more confident. "Aunt Rebecca, when I can walk again, can I help other kids like me?" "Of course, Timothy. In fact, you're already helping." "How?" "Your courage inspires all of us." Emily watched everything with a strange feeling growing inside her. For the first time in 2 years, Timothy seemed truly happy. It wasn't just about walking, it was about feeling useful, loved, part of something bigger. Ashley came back from the mothers group meeting completely transformed. "Emily, I met a woman who has a 15-year-old son with cerebral palsy. He's a Paralympic swimming champion." "Really?" "And another mother who has a daughter with Down syndrome who works at a bakery and supports the family." Timothy approached the 2 women. "Aunt Ashley, are you crying?" "Yes, sweetheart, but they're tears of joy." "Are you going to have a baby?" "Yes, I am." "That's so cool. Can I teach him how to do the exercises when he grows up?" Ashley looked at Emily with gratitude in her eyes. "Yes, you can, Timothy." That week, Timothy's progress accelerated dramatically. He managed to take 3 steps without support before falling into a sitting position. The video of the moment was shared in the community center's WhatsApp group and reached the ears of influential people in town. On Friday, Emily received a call from the Department of Education. "Professor Emily, is it true that you developed a revolutionary pediatric rehabilitation technique?" "I didn't develop any technique. I'm just trying to help my son." "But we heard he's showing extraordinary progress." "Who said that?" "A report came in here signed by several volunteer professionals. They want to formalize the community center's work as a city pilot project." Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. And what does that mean for Timothy? It means he'll have access to all the resources needed to continue treatment, funded by the city. When she hung up, Emily immediately called Ruth. Ruth, do you know anything about the Department of Education? I do. We sent a report about the work we're developing here. Timothy's case drew a lot of attention. But I didn't authorize... Calm down, dear. We didn't identify any specific children. We just showed the results of the integrated method we're applying. And now we can formalize everything and get resources to help many more children, including Timothy. That night, Daniel showed up at Emily's house unannounced. Timothy was in his room doing his evening exercises when the doorbell rang. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked, not hiding her irritation. "I want to talk. Can I come in?" "Timothy is resting. It's about him I want to talk about." Emily let him in, but they stayed in the kitchen so as not to wake the boy. "Emily, I need to apologize to you." She almost fell off her chair. "Apologize for what?" "For everything. For the cruel proposal, for blaming you, for abandoning you when you needed me most." "Daniel, are you drunk?" "No, I'm desperate." He told her that Ashley had lost the baby the previous week, a pregnancy complication unrelated to the genetic condition, but it made him reflect on his priorities. "I lost a child who wasn't even born yet, and I risked losing the son I already have because of pride and stupidity." Emily felt compassion despite all the accumulated anger. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Emily, I want to cancel the agreement. I want to pay child support. I want to be part of Timothy's life. I want to help with his treatment. And what if I say I don't want you in our lives anymore?" Daniel lowered his head. "I would deserve it. But I ask you for a chance to be the father Timothy deserves." Timothy appeared at the kitchen door, dragging himself along the wall. "Daddy?" he asked in a sleepy voice. Daniel knelt to his son's level. "Hi, champ. Did you see I managed to stand up?" "Yes, I did. I'm so proud of you. Are you coming back home?" Daniel looked at Emily, who nodded affirmatively. "I don't know, son. That depends on Mommy." "Mommy, can Daddy come back?" Emily took a deep breath. She had spent 2 months learning that family wasn't about having a husband back, but about making sure little Timmy had all the love and support possible. "Timothy, Daddy can come visit us whenever he wants, but he won't live here again." "Why?" "Because sometimes people love each other, but they can't live together. But that doesn't change the love we have for you." Daniel nodded, understanding. "She's right, Timothy. Daddy made a lot of mistakes, and now he needs to learn to be a better father. But you won't fight anymore." "We won't fight anymore," promised Emily. By the 3rd month of the original challenge, Timothy was walking with minimal support. The community center project had been approved by the city, and the place became a reference for compassionate pediatric rehabilitation. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Daniel started attending the family therapy sessions that Dr. Williams had recommended. In the first sessions, he could barely speak without crying. "Doctor, I abandoned my son when he needed me the most," he confessed in a particularly difficult session. "Why do you think you did that?" asked the psychologist. "Because I was afraid I wasn't strong enough to handle the situation. And now? Now I see that my ex-wife, a teacher who makes $1,500 a month, was stronger than me. A business owner." Timothy, who participated in the sessions, listened carefully. "Daddy, you don't need to be afraid. I'm not sad anymore," said the boy. "Why were you sad, son?" "Because I thought you fought because of me, that I was a problem." Daniel knelt beside his son's chair, holding his little hands. "Timothy, you were never a problem. You are the most important thing in Daddy's life." "Then why did you leave?" "Because Daddy was confused and scared. But now I understand that Daddy's place is by his son's side, always." Emily watched the conversation between father and son with mixed feelings. On one hand, she was happy to see Daniel taking responsibility. On the other, it still hurt to remember all the nights Timothy cried asking where his father was. After the session, Daniel asked to speak with Emily privately. Ashley, I know I ruined everything between us. I know you don't love me anymore. Daniel, let me finish. I want you to know that you don't have to pretend you've forgiven me because of Timothy. We can be good parents without being a couple. I know that. And I also want you to know that I will cover all the costs of his treatment. It's the least I can do. Daniel, the treatment isn't about money anymore. It's about presence, dedication, love, things you can't buy. I know, and that's why I want to be involved. Ashley had moved back to her mother's house in Tampa after losing the baby. Before leaving, she went to say goodbye to Emily and Timothy. Emily, thank you for showing me how a real mother fights for her children. Ashley, you will be a wonderful mother when the right time comes. And you will continue to be the strongest woman I know. Timothy gave a drawing to Ashley. It's so you don't forget us, he said. The drawing showed a woman smiling with a baby in her arms, surrounded by hearts. Timothy, you are an angel, said Ashley, kissing his forehead. With the city's official support, Timothy's treatment now included professional equipment. But Emily insisted on keeping the sessions with Mrs. Eleanor and John Carter, who had become part of the family. Dr. Williams monitored the progress monthly and was increasingly impressed. What you're doing here should be studied by the best universities in the country, he said during a visit to the center. Doctor, there's nothing scientific about what we do, replied Ruth. We just treat every child as unique and special. Maybe that's exactly what medicine was missing. In the 4th month, Timothy walked 15 feet without support. In the 5th month, he went up and down a small staircase by himself. In the 6th month, he ran for the first time since he was 3 years old. The day of the final demonstration was set for a Saturday. Daniel arrived accompanied by his parents, who had reconciled with Emily after understanding the whole situation. "Grandpa, Grandma," shouted Timothy when he saw them. "Our grandson," said Mrs. Grace, Daniel's mother, hugging Timothy. "You've gotten so big." Mr. Joseph, Daniel's father, approached Emily. "My dear, forgive me for how we treated you during the divorce. We didn't understand anything." "Mr. Joseph, that's in the past." "No, it's not. I raised my son thinking that a man can't show weakness. That's what almost destroyed our family." Mrs. Eleanor, John Carter, Ruth, and the entire center staff were present. Even some of Emily's fellow teachers came to show their support. "Timothy is nervous," observed Rebecca. It was true. The boy was restless, constantly moving his hands. "Son, do you want to do the demonstration, or would you rather do it another day?" asked Emily. "I want to do it, but I'm afraid of falling and disappointing everyone." Daniel knelt in front of his son. "Timothy, you've already impressed me more than anything in my life. If you fall, I'll be here to pick you up. Here to pick, always. Promise?" "I promise." Timothy took a deep breath and positioned himself at one end of the hall. On the other side, 20 feet away, Emily waited for him with open arms. "Come on, my love." Timothy took the first step. Firm. The second step. More confident. On the third step, he wavered but didn't fall. He kept walking, first slowly, then faster. When he was 5 feet from Emily, Timothy smiled and started to run. It wasn't a perfect run, but they were fast, determined steps. He threw himself into his mother's arms with such force that they both fell to the ground, laughing and crying at the same time. "I did it, Mummy. I did it." "Yes, you did, my champion." Daniel approached and knelt beside them. Timothy stretched out his little arms to his father, who hugged him tightly. "Daddy, now you can call me your son who walks again." "You've always been my son who walks, Timothy, on legs or in my heart." Everyone present applauded, moved. Mrs. Margaret cried so much that Mr. Joseph offered her his handkerchief. "Thank you, Mr. Joseph. That boy is a blessing." "Yes, he is, and his strength comes from his mother." Emily looked around, seeing all those people who had become family during the 6 most difficult months of her life. John Carter was filming everything on his phone to show his own son. Ruth was organizing the center's children for a musical presentation in honor of Timothy. Mrs. Eleanor was discreetly blessing the boy, whispering prayers of gratitude. Daniel approached Emily when Timothy was distracted with his grandparents. I don't deserve you as my wife anymore. I know that. But can I try to deserve you as a partner in raising our son? Daniel, these 6 months have taught me that I don't need you to be happy, but Timothy needs a present father. That's what I want to be, a present father. Then let's try. As a family, but not as a couple. And if one day I can prove that I've really changed, one day at a time, Daniel. Dr. Williams, who had come to watch the demonstration, approached the couple. Can I speak with both of you? Of course, Doctor. I'd like to invite you to participate in a study I'm developing on integrated rehabilitation. Timothy's case is exceptional. How so? He not only regained his motor skills, he developed coordination and strength beyond what's expected for a child his age. This suggests that the method you used could help many other families. Ruth joined the conversation. Doctor, we always knew that love heals more than any medicine. And now we have scientific data to prove it. 6 months after the fateful hearing, Emily was preparing little Timmy for a school presentation when Daniel came to pick them up. Ready to show your classmates how to really walk? He joked. So ready, replied little Timmy, running around the room. At Washington Elementary School, little Timmy's presentation on how I overcame my difficulty moved students and teachers. He talked about every person who helped him, from Mrs. Eleanor to John Carter, including all the volunteers from the center. And my mommy never gave up on me, even when everyone said it was impossible, he concluded. Mrs. Barbara, the principal, approached Emily after the presentation. Emily, I have a proposal for you. What kind of proposal? The Department of Education wants to implement the Community Center project in all schools in the district. We need an educational coordinator. Me. You know the method better than anyone and have credibility with the families. But I like teaching. You would continue teaching. It would be half-time in the classroom, half-time coordinating the project. Emily looked at little Timmy, who was playing with his classmates in the yard. For the first time in years, he was running like any normal child. Can I think about it? Of course. But don't take too long. We want to start next semester. That evening, during dinner at Mrs. Margaret's house, Emily told them about the proposal. Honey, it's an amazing opportunity, said her mother, but it means much more responsibility. Daniel, who had been invited to dinner, offered his opinion. Marie, you transformed Timothy's life in 6 months. Imagine how many other children you could help. What if I can't handle it? Mommy, interrupted little Timmy, you always say we have to try, even when it seems impossible. That's true. So, try. If it doesn't work out, at least you tried. Emily smiled, recognizing her own words in her son's mouth. Okay, I'll accept. 1 year after the hearing, Emily was at the official inauguration of the city's Integrated Rehabilitation Center. The pilot project had been so successful that the city decided to create a permanent center. Little Timmy, now 6 years old, was chosen to cut the inaugural ribbon. He held the scissors with both hands, focused on the task. Done, he shouted after cutting the ribbon. Now all the children can learn to walk again? The audience applauded emotionally. Emily watched everything with a feeling of fulfillment she had never experienced before. Daniel approached her during the reception. Marie, can I tell you something? Go ahead. I love you more today than when we were married. Daniel, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. Why are you telling me this? Because these months have made me understand that I didn't love you the right way before. I loved you as a possession, not as a partner. Emily remained silent, watching little Timmy play with other children from the center. And now? Now I love you for who you are, the most courageous and dedicated woman I know, and if one day you want to try again, I promise it will be different. Daniel, I need time to think. I have all the time in the world. Dr. Williams approached the couple. Emily, Daniel, have you seen the study results? What results? Of the 50 children who participated in the pilot project, 42 showed significant improvements. 15 started walking completely again, like Timothy. And the others? Even those who didn't regain full mobility showed improvements in quality of life, self-esteem, and cognitive development. What does that mean? It means you've helped revolutionize how we treat children with motor limitations in the United States. Ruth joined the group. And the best part, we're expanding to other cities. How so? Asked Emily Johnson. National University wants to create an extension program based on our method. You would be the general coordinator. Emily looked at Daniel Roberts, who smiled encouragingly. Accept it, Emily. You were born for this. But what about Timothy? Timothy will be with me on the days you travel, and we'll all go together whenever possible. That night at home, Timothy was playing in his room when Emily called him. Son, Mommy needs to talk to you about something important. What is it? Remember when you couldn't walk and I promised I would do everything to help you get better? I remember. Now other mommies have children who also can't walk? Do you think Mommy should help them too? Timothy thought for a moment. I think so. But will you still be my mommy? I will always be your mommy. Nothing in the world changes that. Then you can help other children. Can I help too? How do you want to help? I can tell them that it's possible to get better, that there's no need to be afraid. Emily hugged her son, feeling immense gratitude for having raised such a generous child. You would be a great helper. 2 years after the challenge, Timothy was running, climbing trees, and playing soccer like any 7-year-old. The Integrated Rehabilitation Center had already helped more than 300 families in 5 different cities. Emily and Daniel Roberts maintained a cordial and collaborative relationship. They had dinner together once a week and spent holidays as a family but lived in separate homes. Emily, can I ask you a question? Said Daniel during one of these family dinners. Go ahead. Do you still think about getting married again? Honestly, no. I'm happy as I am. Really? Daniel, these years have taught me that I'm complete on my own. If one day I choose to share my life with someone, it will be because I want to, not because I need to. Timothy, who was listening to the conversation, interrupted. Mommy, but if you get married again, will that person live with us? Why do you ask, son? Because I like our house being just ours, and Daddy can come visit whenever he wants. Daniel laughed. I think Timothy is right. Our family works better this way. Daddy, can I tell you a secret? Asked Timothy. Go ahead. When you left, I was sad and my legs stopped working. When you started visiting me again, they started working again. Daniel fell silent, digesting his son's words. Son, are you saying that? I'm saying that I needed Daddy nearby to be strong. Timothy, Daddy will never leave your life again. I promise. I know. That's why I can run so fast now. On a Saturday afternoon, 3 years after the challenge, Emily was organizing the center's files when she found a letter a mother had written. Teacher Emily, thank you for teaching me that a mother's love can move mountains. My daughter walks today, thanks to the example of courage that you and Timothy gave us. You saved our family. Timothy ran into the room. Mommy, Daddy's here. Can we go to the park? Yes, let's go. At the park, Timothy ran among the other children, going up and down the slide, swinging on the swings. Daniel and Emily sat on a bench watching. Emily, can I ask you one last question about us? Daniel, let's not go down that road again. It's not what you're thinking. I just want to know, did you truly forgive me? Emily thought about the question honestly. You know, Daniel, I think forgiving isn't pretending the pain never existed. It's accepting that it was part of our growth. And did you grow up? I discovered I'm much stronger than I imagined. And you? I discovered that being a father is about being present during difficult moments, not just the happy ones. Timothy came running back to them. Dad, Mom, come play with me. Let's go, said Emily, standing up. Just a minute, Timothy, requested Daniel. Daddy wants to say something important. Timothy stopped, paying attention. Son, Daddy wants to apologize for taking so long to understand that you're perfect exactly as you are. Daddy, am I not sick anymore? You were never sick, Timothy. You just needed help remembering how to walk, like when we forget where we put a toy. Oh, I get it. And now I remembered. Now you remembered. Timothy hugged both parents at the same time. I love you, together and apart. Emily and Daniel looked at each other over their son's head, and for the first time in years, smiled together without resentment. At dusk, when they were heading back home, Timothy asked a question that surprised his parents. "Mommy, can I ask something?" "Of course, son." "Why did Daddy have to make that bet for me to learn to walk? Weren't you going to help me anyway?" Emily and Daniel exchanged glances. How to explain to a 7-year-old the complexity of adult relationships? "Timothy," began Daniel, "sometimes adults do wrong things when they're scared or confused." "And were you scared?" "I was. Scared that you wouldn't get better. Scared I wouldn't know how to help. But you could have stayed and learned with Mommy." Daniel stopped walking and knelt at his son's level. "You're right, Timothy. I could and should have stayed. That was my mistake. But now you learned. I learned. And I'll never make that mistake again." Timothy nodded, satisfied with the answer. "Okay. Can I go run a little more now?" "You can." Both parents laughed together. 6 months later, Emily received an unexpected invitation. The Rehabilitation Center had been nominated to receive a national award for innovation in public health. "Professor, you'll have to go to Washington, D.C. to receive the award," said Ruth, emotional. "Me? Why? You're the coordinator. But you're the inspiration. It was your struggle with Timothy that started all this." "Ruth, I just did what any mother would do." "No, dear. You did what an exceptional mother does." At the ceremony in Washington, D.C., Emily was nervous on stage. Timothy, now 8 years old, accompanied her wearing a small suit that Daniel had bought especially for the occasion. "And now let's hear the speech from Professor Emily Johnson, creator of the Rebirth Project," announced the host. Emily approached the microphone, looked at Timothy in the front row, and took a deep breath. "Ladies and gentlemen, 3 years ago I was just a desperate teacher trying to help my son walk. Today I'm here because I learned that the greatest miracles happen when we refuse to accept limitations imposed by fear." The audience applauded. "Timothy," she looked directly at her son, "thank you for teaching me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and still trying anyway." Timothy stood up in the audience. "Mommy, can I speak too?" The host nodded positively. Timothy climbed on stage with the agility of any healthy child. "I want to tell all the children who can't walk," he said into the microphone. "Don't give up. I didn't give up, and now I can run faster than the wind." The audience stood up, applauding. Emily hugged her son on stage, crying with pride. On the way home on the airplane, Timothy slept leaning on his mother's shoulder. Daniel, who had insisted on accompanying them, watched the two with a calm smile. "Emily, can I tell you something?" "You can. At that hearing, when I made that cruel proposal, I was certain you would fail." "I know. I wanted you to fail so I could say I was right, that the problem was yours. And now I know the biggest mistake of my life was doubting you. Daniel, what matters is that you learned. I learned that loving someone means believing in their potential, even when they don't believe in themselves." Little Timmy stirred in his sleep, whispering, "Mommy, you're the best mum in the world." Emily kissed her son's forehead and looked out the airplane window. Down below, the United States stretched out vast and full of possibilities. "Daniel," she said softly, "thank you." "Why?" "For forcing me to discover what I'm capable of." 1 year later, the Integrated Rehabilitation Center had expanded to 15 cities. Emily coordinated the project nationally, traveling across the country to train other professionals. Little Timmy, now 9 years old, had become something of a mascot for the project. He participated in talks by telling his story and encouraging other children. "Aunt Ruth," he said during a visit to the original center, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, my dear." "Sometimes I pretend I still have trouble walking." "Why?" "So the other children won't feel embarrassed. So they see that I understand how they feel." Ruth was moved by the boy's sensitivity. "Timothy, you're very special." "I'm not special. I just learned from Mommy that helping others makes us happy." On a Thursday afternoon, Emily was at the center when she received a call from Ashley. "Em, I have news. Tell me. I'm pregnant again." "Ashley, How wonderful! And this time the tests show the baby is perfectly healthy. I'm so happy for you. Em, can I ask you something? Of course. When the baby is born, can I bring him to meet Timothy? I want my child to grow up knowing limitations don't define anyone. Ashley, you'll always be welcome here. Ashley had married a physical education teacher. She met in a course about special needs. They lived in a small town in the countryside where he had opened a community center based on the model created by Emily. For Timothy's 10th birthday, the party was at the community center. Dozens of children who had been helped by the project were present. "Timothy," said Andrew, the boy in the wheelchair who had been his friend from the beginning, "do you remember when we met?" "I remember. You were the strongest boy I knew. And you were the bravest boy I knew. And now we're both strong and brave." The two friends hugged, each in their own way, but with the same emotional strength. During the party, Emily received a surprise. Dr. Williams arrived accompanied by a man she didn't know. "Emily, I want to introduce Dr. Robert Miller from the World Health Organization." "What do you mean?" "Professor Emily," said Dr. Miller, "I came personally to invite you to present the American project at the International Rehabilitation Congress in Geneva." "Geneva? In Switzerland?" "Yes. Your method is gaining international attention." Emily looked at Timothy, who was playing happily with his friends. "Doctor, it's an honor, but I can't leave my son." "Who said you're leaving him?" interrupted Daniel, who had overheard the conversation. "We're all going together." "Daniel, Em, this is your chance to show the whole world what you've accomplished. Timothy will be proud to have a mother recognized worldwide." Timothy came running over. "Mommy, what are you talking about?" "Son, Mommy was invited to travel somewhere very far away to talk about the center's work." "Cool, can I come too?" "You can," replied Daniel. "We'll take our first international family trip." "As a family?" asked Timothy hopefully. "As the family we are today," explained Emily. "Me, you and Daddy, who love each other but don't live together." "Oh, okay. It's just like Andrew with his parents, just like." On the eve of the trip to Geneva, Emily was packing her bags when she found a letter that Timothy had written. "Dear Mom, thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for teaching me that being different isn't being worse. Thank you for showing me that family is about love, not about living in the same house. I love you very much, and I'm proud to be your son. Timothy." Emily cried reading the letter. She called Timothy, who was in his room watching cartoons. "Son, did you write this letter?" "I did. Did you like it?" "I loved it." "But why did you write it?" "Because I want you to keep it for when you're sad, to remind you that you're the best mom in the world." In Geneva, Emily's presentation was an absolute success. Timothy accompanied her on stage and demonstrated his full mobility to an audience of over 500 international specialists. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Timothy in English that he had learned at school, "my mother taught me that love is the best medicine." The audience stood up applauding. Emily was moved seeing her son, who 3 years earlier could barely stand, running across the stage of one of the largest medical conferences in the world. "Timothy," she whispered, "you're amazing. We're amazing, Mom, the two of us together." Daniel watched everything from the audience, recording every moment. When the presentation ended, he went up on stage and hugged them both. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Daddy, is Mom famous now?" asked Timothy. "Your mother has always been special, son. Now the whole world knows it." Upon returning to the United States, a surprise awaited them. The airport was full of families that had been helped by the project, children running, parents crying with emotion, thank you signs. "Mom, look how many people," said Timothy, impressed. "They came to welcome us, son." Mrs. Eleanor was at the front of the group, holding a bouquet of flowers. "My dear girl, you took our work to the whole world." "Mrs. Eleanor, none of this would exist without you." "It would exist, because it exists here." She pointed to Emily's heart. "A mother's love is universal." John Carter approached with Andrew, who now used crutches instead of a wheelchair. "Teacher, Emily, Andrew has a surprise for Timothy." "What surprise?" Andrew leaned on his crutches and took 3 steps without support before using the crutches again. Timothy, look, I'm learning to walk too. Timothy ran to his friend and hugged him. Andrew, I knew you could do it. I learned by watching you. If you could do it, I can too. Emily watched the scene with tears in her eyes. What had started as a desperate attempt to save her son had turned into a network of hope that reached dozens of families. Dr. Williams approached her. Emily, I have a proposal for you. Another award? No, a professorship at the university. We want to create the first undergraduate course in integrated rehabilitation in the country. Doctor, I'm an early childhood education teacher, and that's exactly why you understand human development better than any doctor. Daniel listened to the conversation. Emily, accept it. Timothy and I will support you in everything. But it would be a very big change in our routine. Mom, interrupted Timothy, remember what you taught me. What? That we always have to try, even when it seems impossible. Emily laughed, recognizing her own words. All right, I'll try. 5 years after the initial challenge, Emily had become a doctor in integrated rehabilitation, graduated through a partnership between American and European universities. Timothy, at 12 years old, was a volunteer monitor at the center in his free time and dreamed of being a physical therapist. Daniel had sold his company to dedicate himself fully to social work. He coordinated the administrative part of the centers spread across the country. Emily, Gus, he said during a work meeting, I have some news. Good or bad? Good. The project was selected to receive international funding. We'll be able to open centers in other Latin American countries. Really? Very much so. The World Health Organization wants to use our model as a global reference. Timothy, who was doing homework at a nearby table, lifted his head. Does that mean we'll help children from other countries too? Yes, it does, replied Emily. Cool. Can I learn Spanish to talk to them? Yes, you can, son. That night, Emily was at home organizing documents for the international project when she received an unexpected visit. It was Jessica, the teacher who had reported the pool sessions years ago. Professor Johnson, may I speak with you? Of course, Jessica. Come in. Jessica seemed embarrassed. I came to apologize for what I did years ago, with the school pool. Oh, that. It's in the past, Jessica. It's not. I almost hindered Timothy's recovery out of envy. Envy? Envy of your dedication as a mother. I never had children and always judged mothers who made a fuss about their kids. And now? Now I volunteer at the center on Saturdays. I've learned that a mother's love is the most powerful force there is. Emily was surprised by Jessica's transformation. Jessica, we all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. Professor, may I ask you something? Go ahead. How did you manage to forgive your ex-husband after everything he did? Emily thought about the question carefully. You know, Jessica, I didn't forgive him for his sake. I forgave him for my own peace. And did it work? It did. Today we're partners raising our son and working together, not as a couple but as family. And don't you miss having a companion? Honestly? No. My life is complete with Timothy, with work, with all of you who've become chosen family. Timothy appeared in the kitchen in his pajamas. Mommy, I can't sleep. Why, son? I'm thinking about the children from other countries we're going to help. What are you thinking? That maybe they don't even know they're going to get better, like I didn't know. That's true. Mommy, can I make a video for them? What kind of video? Telling my story, so they can have hope. Emily looked at Jessica, who was visibly moved. I think that's a wonderful idea, son. The following weekend, Timothy recorded a 10-minute video telling his story. He spoke directly to the camera, running, jumping, demonstrating everything he could do. Hello, my name is Timothy, and I want to tell you how I started walking again, he began. A few years ago, my legs stopped working. I was very sad because I couldn't play like other boys. The video was translated into Spanish, English, and French. Within months, it had been viewed by over 2 million people. Emily began receiving letters from families worldwide, thanking her for the hope Timothy had given their children. One letter in particular moved her deeply. It was from a Mexican mother. Dear Emily, my 6-year-old son watched Timothy's video 50 times. Now he says he's going to walk like the American boy. We started the exercises and for the first time in 2 years, my son smiled. Thank you for showing us that miracles exist when love doesn't give up. Daniel, she said, showing the letter. Look at this. It's incredible, Emily. You two are changing lives around the world. It's not just Timothy and me. It's our entire support network. Mrs. Eleanor, John Carter, Ruth, you, and especially you, who never gave up. One Saturday afternoon, Timothy was playing at the center when he asked a question that took Emily by surprise. Mommy, can I ask you something serious? Go ahead, son. Do you still love Dad? Emily Johnson sat beside him on the garden bench. Why do you ask? Because I see you talking and laughing together, and you take care of each other. Timothy, there are different kinds of love. I love your father as your dad and as a work partner. But not as a husband? Not as a husband. And does he understand that? Yes, he does. And are you happy like this? We are very happy like this. Timothy nodded, satisfied. Then it's fine. I just wanted to make sure you weren't sad. That night, Daniel came over for dinner with them, as had become the custom on Saturdays. During dessert, he made an announcement. I have news for you two. What news? Asked Timothy. Dad is moving to a house nearby. Closer than now? Much closer. On the same street. Timothy was thrilled. Really? Can I go to your house every day? You can. And Dad can come here every day too if Mom allows it. Emily smiled. Of course I allow it. We are a family, even living in different houses. 3 months later, when Daniel moved into the new house, Timothy helped carry the boxes. Dad, your house is just like ours. How so, son? There are photos of me everywhere. It was true. Daniel had decorated the new house with photos of Timothy at every stage of life, including many from the rehabilitation period. Of course, Timothy, you are the most important person in Dad's life. And in Mom's too? And in Mom's too. Timothy ran through the new house, testing out every room. Mom, come see. Dad made a room just like mine in the old house. Emily entered the room that Daniel had prepared for Timothy. It was identical to the room in her house, down to the wall colors. Daniel, you didn't have to... Yes, I did. I want Timothy to feel at home in both places. That night, Timothy slept in the new house for the first time. Emily went to pick him up on Sunday morning and found him making breakfast with Daniel. Good morning, Mom, he said, running to hug her. Good morning, my love. Did you sleep well? I did. Dad told me stories from when he was little. What stories? That when he was my age, he was just as stubborn as I am. Daniel laughed. He got his stubbornness from both of us. It's true. During breakfast, Timothy made a proposal. Dad, Mom, can I suggest something? Go ahead, they said together. How about we write a book telling our story? A book? Asked Emily. Yes, so other families can read it and know that it's possible to overcome difficulties. Daniel and Emily looked at each other. That's not a bad idea, said Daniel. It would be really interesting, agreed Emily. And can I help write it? Asked Timothy. Of course, son, after all, it's your story, replied Emily. 2 years later, the book The Power of Love, a Family, A Triumph for Hope became a national bestseller. Timothy, now 14, participated in the book signings along with Emily. Mister, said an 8-year-old girl wearing leg braces, is it true that you couldn't walk when you were little? It's true, replied Timothy, but my mom never gave up on me. And now you walk normally? I walk, run, play ball, climb trees, I do everything. Will I be able to too? Yes, you will. But the most important thing isn't walking. It's never stopping believing in yourself. The girl smiled and asked Timothy to sign her copy of the book. During a book signing in Chicago, Emily ran into someone who had changed her life. It was Dr. Williams, now retired. Doctor, what a surprise. Emily, I came to bring you some news. What news? Your method has been officially recognized by the Federal Medical Board. It's now the official protocol for integrated pediatric rehabilitation. What does that mean? It means that what started as a mother's desperation has become recognized science. Timothy approached. Dr. Williams, do you remember me? How could I forget? You're the most famous boy in American rehabilitation. Doctor, can I tell you a secret? Go ahead. Sometimes I still pretend I have trouble walking. Why? To understand how other children feel and help them better. Dr. Williams was impressed by the teenager's empathy. Timothy, do you already know what you want to be when you grow up? I do. I want to be a physical therapist who specializes in children. Excellent choice. And I also want to be a writer, to tell stories of triumph. Like yours? Like ours. Timothy looked at Emily. Mine and Mom's. On a Sunday afternoon, 15 years after the original challenge, Emily was at the community center organizing an exhibit about the history of the project when Timothy arrived with news. Mom, I got into physical therapy school. Timothy, she shouted, hugging her son. I'm so proud. And there's more. I got a full scholarship because of my volunteer history here at the center. My son, you're amazing. I learned from the best teacher in the world. Daniel arrived at that moment and found the two hugging. What happened? Dad, I got into college. Timothy. Daniel lifted his son into the air, who was now 17, but still enjoyed childhood games. And I'm going to study at the same university where Mom teaches. You'll work together again, observed Daniel. Like we always have, said Emily. That evening, the three had dinner together at Emily's house. It was a tradition they had maintained for years. Every Sunday they had dinner together, sometimes at her house, sometimes at Daniel's. Dad, Mom, can I say something? Said Timothy. Of course, they replied together. I never missed you living together. No? Asked Daniel, surprised. No, because you were always present in my life, and I always knew you respect and care for each other. Timothy, said Emily, you've become a very wise man. I learned by watching you. You taught me that family isn't about where we live, but about how we care for each other. Daniel swallowed his emotion. Son, you're right. After dinner, Timothy went to his room to study and Daniel helped Emily with the dishes. Emily, can I tell you something? Go ahead. I'm grateful you didn't take me back then. Why? Because it forced me to grow as a person before becoming part of the family again. Daniel, you were always part of the family. You just needed to learn to be a healthy part. And did I learn? Emily looked out the window where she could see Timothy studying in his room. Look at our son. Happy, confident, generous. I think we all learned. At Timothy's college graduation 5 years later, the whole extended family was present. Mrs. Margaret, now 80 years old, was moved to see her grandson receive his diploma. My little grandson, a doctor, she said, crying. Grandma, now I can take care of you when you need it. Oh, my dear boy. John Carter, who had become a sort of substitute grandfather, was in the front row recording everything. Timothy, I've been proud of you since the first day I met you. Uncle John, you taught me that persistence is more important than talent. Mrs. Eleanor, despite being 85, had insisted on attending. My boy, you really became a doctor. Mrs. Eleanor, you were my first physical therapy teacher, and you were my best student. Ruth, now the regional director of the project, approached Emily during the celebration. Emily, I have news for you. Tell me. Timothy was selected for an exchange program at Stanford University. They're going to study our method there. Stanford? In the United States? Yes, a 2-year postgraduate program with everything paid for. Emily was shocked. But he just graduated. Exactly why? They want to study his unique perspective, a patient who became a therapist. Timothy approached at that moment. Mom, what are you talking about? Son, you've been selected to study at Stanford. Timothy stopped, processing the information. Stanford, the famous university? That's the one. But it's very far from here. It is. And what about you, Mom? Are you coming with me? Timothy, you're an adult now. You can go on your own. But I don't want to be away from you and Dad. Daniel Roberts joined the conversation. Son, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and 2 years will fly by. Do you think I should go? Emily Johnson and Daniel Roberts exchanged glances. We think you should decide, said Emily. Timothy was thoughtful for a few minutes. Okay, I'll go. But on one condition. What is it? I want to document everything to show the kids at the center that they can go far too. Perfect, said Daniel. 6 months later, Timothy was saying his goodbyes at the airport. He had grown a lot in recent months, not just physically but emotionally too. Mom, take good care of the center for me, he asked. Don't worry. Dad, keep helping Mom. I always will. And both of you take care of yourselves. I don't want to come back and find you old and cranky. The three laughed. Timothy, said Emily, I'm proud of the man you've become. Mom, everything I am, I learned from you. That's not true. You have a generous heart that's all your own. Timothy hugged his parents one by one, then both together. I love you. I always will. We love you too, said Daniel and Emily together. 2 years at Stanford passed in the blink of an eye. Timothy returned fluent in English, with a vast wealth of knowledge and ambitious plans to expand the American project. Mom, Dad, I have a proposal for you, he said at the first dinner after his return. What proposal? Asked Emily. Let's create an entire university dedicated to integrated rehabilitation. Timothy, that's very ambitious, said Daniel. Dad, you always say that big dreams require great courage. That's true. So shall we try? Emily looked at her son, now a 24-year-old man, graduated from one of the best universities in the world, but still with the same sparkle in his eyes as when he was a child. Let's try, she said. Let's do it, agreed Daniel. 5 years later, the American University of Integrated Rehabilitation was a reality. Timothy was the youngest dean in the history of American higher education. Emily headed the research department. Daniel managed the administrative side and fundraising. At the inauguration ceremony, Timothy gave a speech that moved the audience. 20 years ago, I was a boy who couldn't walk. Today, I'm the dean of a university that will train professionals to help other children like I was. This was only possible because a mother refused to accept limitations imposed by fear. He looked at Emily in the audience. Mom, thank you for never giving up on me, for teaching me that impossible is just a word we use when we don't have enough courage to try. The audience rose to their feet, applauding. Emily cried with pride, flanked by Mrs. Margaret, now 87 years old, and by the entire support network that had become family over the years. Dr. Williams, even retired, was present. Emily, he said after the ceremony, do you remember our first appointment? I do. You said it would be very difficult. And it was. But you proved that a mother's love can overcome any medical difficulty. Doctor, it was much more than a mother's love. It was a whole network of people who believed. That's true. But you were the center of that network. Timothy approached, still wearing his dean's robe. Dr. Williams, would you like to meet our first graduating class? Of course. Timothy took the doctor to meet the 50 students who had graduated from the country's first integrated physical therapy program. Many of them were adults who had overcome limitations in childhood using the method developed at the center. This is Andrew, introduced Timothy, my first friend at the center. Today he specializes in aquatic rehabilitation. Andrew, now 26 and walking with the aid of a discreet cane, greeted Dr. Williams. Doctor, it's an honor. Timothy always spoke so highly of you. The pleasure is mine. Timothy tells me you developed some innovative techniques together. Yes, when you overcome a limitation, you understand better how to help others overcome theirs. That evening, Emily was at home organizing old photos when she found the picture they had taken at the courthouse on the day of the challenge. Timothy appeared small and fragile in her arms, while Daniel was standing beside them with a stern expression. Mom, what's this picture? Asked Timothy, who had just arrived quietly. It's from the day your father made that proposal in court. Timothy looked at the photo carefully. I looked so small. You were small, and you were scared. And you, Mum, how did you feel? Desperate, but determined. And Dad, your father was lost. He didn't know how to handle the situation. Timothy sat next to his mother on the couch. "Mom, can I tell you something I never told you?" "Of course." "Back then, when I couldn't walk, I used to hear you crying at night." Emily felt her heart tighten. "Timothy, and I promised myself I would learn to walk again so you would stop crying. Son, that wasn't your responsibility. I know, but I loved you so much I wanted to see you happy. And you succeeded. We succeeded. Together." Daniel arrived just then to pick up Timothy, who was going to sleep at his house. "What are you two talking about?" he asked. "We were remembering the very beginning," said Emily, showing him the photo. Daniel looked at the image and shook his head. "How ignorant I was." "Daddy, you weren't ignorant. You were scared," said Timothy. "It's the same thing, son." "No, it's not. Ignorant is someone who doesn't want to learn. You learned." Daniel hugged his son. "I learned from the best teacher there is, you." 15 years after the challenge, Timothy had become an international reference in integrated rehabilitation. He married a physical therapist he met during a congress and had twin children who were perfectly healthy. "Grandma Emily," said his 5-year-old granddaughter, "is it true that Grandpa Timothy didn't know how to walk when he was little?" "It's true, my granddaughter." "How did he learn?" "With a lot of love, dedication, and help from special people. Like you teach me to read, like I teach you to read." The little girl ran off to play in the garden of the house where the whole family gathered on Sundays. It was Emily's original house, which had become the official meeting point. Daniel, now with graying hair, approached. "Em, do you regret anything from all these years?" "I regret taking so long to understand that I didn't need you to be complete. And I regret taking so long to understand that I needed to deserve you all every single day. But in the end, it all worked out. It did. We're a family in our own unique way." Timothy approached with his twin children. "Dad, Mom, the kids want to know if you're going to tell the story of how I learned to walk." "We'll tell it," said Emily, picking up one of her granddaughters. "Once upon a time," began Daniel, "there was a very brave boy who had an even braver mother. And a daddy who needed to learn to be brave too," added Timothy. The children settled on the couch, ready to hear once again the story that had transformed their lives and the lives of thousands of other families. Outside, the sun set over the city where it had all begun, and Emily felt a deep peace, knowing that love had overcome all limitations. The end of the story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story of triumph? Do you know any family that has faced similar challenges? If this story touched your heart, leave your comment below telling us what moved you the most. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one.